Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's virtual roundtable. I'm going to take a few moments for attendees to connect to the room, and we'll get started momentarily. All right, welcome to our Open Forum Friday here at ACUI as we're hosting the COVID-19 Virtual Roundtable Open Forum. We're excited to have a number of co-facilitators with us today to share experiences that they're having on their campuses and help answer your questions. On behalf of ACUI, my name is Spencer Giese. I'm a research education specialist, and I'm so glad you could join us. Really, today is an opportunity to help us all connect virtually to one another, to talk about experiences that we're having, to hopefully have some questions answered, or at least hear other viewpoints of things we may be facing on our campuses, and really come together. One of the most special parts about housing residence life is really the community and the network that we have amongst one another, and this is another opportunity for us to come together and share and connect. Before we get started, I do want you all to just know that we have a variety of COVID-19 resources out there for you to be checking out. We have a number of YouTube recordings from earlier this week as we've been doing virtual roundtables for a variety of position types. We have an online community, as you hopefully have heard of, and right now we're seeing quite a few topics regarding COVID-19 and how our campuses are handling those posted there. It's a great opportunity to see resources, see files and information people are uploading, and also keep the conversation going online. And then we also have a standalone COVID-19 resources page on our ACUI website, so take a look at that. Lots of great articles and information there that you can take back to your campus. I am joined by 4 outstanding co-facilitators from many positions and many campuses, and we're going to get to know them a bit more momentarily. But before we get started, I want to overview what today looks like. Really, this is meant to be a conversational time. This is not your traditional webinar. We're not going to click through a bunch of slides and read from them. Really, this is you as the attendee engaging with other professionals in the field. And really, we want you to be a part of the webinar. Your participation is going to make this a great experience for everyone in attendance. So on your Zoom menu, you should see a Q&A tab. That is your opportunity to pose questions as they come up to you throughout our time together today. A new feature that we're using today is the ability to upvote questions. So as a question is posed, if that is something that relates to you, you want to hear the answer to that, you as the attendee have the opportunity to upvote that and really show us as co-facilitators and moderators that, hey, that is a topic that this audience really wants to hear more about. So take an opportunity to upvote that. As you're submitting a question in our Q&A area, if you could just share your name, your position, and your institution with that question, that'll just help us better connect with you and identify with you, especially if there's others in the audience that have similar thoughts and concerns. Our question and answer tab is visible to all attendees, so just be mindful of that as you're typing a question in and submitting that. And I will be working on the back end as I see some of our participants that if you have a great question, we want to help you interact with this webinar. So if you submit a question, I might reach out to you on the back end of this and say, hey, attendee, would you like to ask that question live? And we'll bring you and be part of the panel for that question topic. So a really neat ability for you all to connect and be a part of this webinar and make this your own experience. So that being said, let's hear from our co-facilitators today. So our first prompted question we wanted to cover is just what steps have your campuses taken in response to COVID-19 so far? And we'll start with Leon. And Leon, I'm gonna need you to unmute. So sorry.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Leon McClinton, Director of Housing and Residential Life here at Oklahoma State University. And we have definitely taken several steps to address the crisis that we're all dealing with right now. We're now at the point that we just decided this week that we're doing online classes for the rest of the semester. Less than a week ago, we were saying that after spring break, we would do online classes for 2 weeks, and more conversations took place. And now we're at the point where now online class for the rest of the semester. And we have sent, actually yesterday, a release to all of our students, single students on campus, saying that we would like for you to check out between March 23rd and April 3rd, understanding that everyone may not be out by that time, but we are trying to encourage them to fit within that timeline. I have more details and information about that process. As you can imagine, working in housing, there are a lot of logistics that you have to work through. So I'll be proud and happy to share some of those as we move forward.
Thanks, Leon. Kathryn.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kathryn Magura. I'm Assistant Director of Operations at Oregon State University, and very similar to Leon, very much a lot has changed in just 2 weeks here. I took some time yesterday just to reflect on everything that has gone on just in the last couple of weeks here, and information seems to flow very quickly. As of 2 days ago, our campus has made the decision. We are on quarters. There's still a few of us out there, so we're only 2/3 of the way done with our year. And similar to what Leon was saying, we were planning to go 2 weeks for spring, which this next week's our spring break traditionally. We were going to do 2 weeks remote learning and see how that went. And now we've made the decision to go completely online learning for the rest of the year. From my understanding, all 7 public institutions in the state of Oregon came to that conclusion at the same time and have been making their announcements over the last few days. I have not confirmed that that's what happened on all campuses, but I think I've heard that at least 5 of them have already made those announcements. So we are at the point now where we're starting to allow students to break their housing contracts. We have a first-year live-on requirement, so we are releasing that requirement for spring and essentially letting students who want to leave. We're not requiring them to leave. We actually, as a campus, are encouraging them to stay. We want them to know that they've got a space here if they want to stay, and we welcome them. We're also looking at if things get better in the next few weeks or in the next month. Since our campus goes through mid-June, we're looking at opportunities to welcome students to come back if that's something they so choose. So we're trying to make this as graceful an exit as possible. We aren't charging students re-keys if they leave, if they've left already and don't have their keys to turn back in. We're not doing anything like an improper checkout, no cancellation fees. We're just letting people go and just understanding that these are unprecedented times.
Thank you, Kathryn. John.
Hello, everybody. I'm John Lauer. Colorado College is a small private liberal arts college. We have a unique curriculum delivery system called the block plan, where our students are taking essentially one class at a time for 3.5 weeks. And so we were finishing up our 6th block a week ago, and we had made the announcement that we would do an extended spring break, a 2-week spring break, and encouraged all students to leave campus for the spring break, take their critical belongings with them. We had a few students fully check out, but as all of the panelists are commenting, things continued to change. We made the decision to go full online for our block 7 before spring break, but just changed that to block 8 and asked, again, all students who were still on campus to move out, except for those limited exceptions. International students, students who this is their only home for. We have about 1,700 beds out of our 2,000 student population. We have about 1,200 international students, or I'm sorry, 120 international students. So as of today, we have 200 students still with us. A little over half of those are international students. And our biggest challenges have been probably about 50% of the students who left did not take their belongings because they had left before we had made those announcements. We are also seeing pretty good spread of concerns of infection here in Colorado Springs, which has our 200 student population very nervous. Our majority of our staff are working remotely, so it's basically me and campus safety and our dining services group that's still here trying to figure out how we might manage what we fear, which would be an outbreak. We are wrapping up the first week of that spring break, so we have one more week before we start the online classes. So primarily we're dealing with financial concerns, students' concerns around technology that have returned back to their international country, and just the ever-changing news and how we support people in many ways now virtually.
Thank you so much for sharing, John. Liz.
Hey everybody, my name is Liz Gordon-Canlis. I'm the Director of Residence Life and Housing at Columbus College of Art and Design. We're a small art and design school in downtown Columbus, Ohio, right next to Hawaii. And if you, of course, have been watching all of the news, Ohio as a state has had a very aggressive response to COVID-19, and things changed rapidly, I would say, for everybody in the state of Ohio when on Monday evening last week, Ohio State shared that they would be going to remote classes and having their students move off campus. It kind of caused this waterfall, and my loving colleagues at Ohio State, where I had the pleasure of working for many years, were a part of that tremendous lift. And so that, I think, signaled to the smaller institutions in Central Ohio of what steps should we be taking. So the idea of online learning, of course, is challenging for art and design institutions. You cannot do screen printing and blow glass and do weaving and install a gallery online, but you can. So that we're figuring out some ways to really be creative and to have that space be a really amazing creative challenge for our students. And early on, I felt very strongly about ensuring that our students had a place to stay. And I was frankly a little unsure why so many people were encouraging their students to leave. And then as we kind of went along with the preparedness steps that were directives given to us by our state governor, I started to just realize some different things and maybe, not necessarily change my tune, but it opened up my eyes to the sense of, students have to decide where they will be most comfortable if there is a directive that really limits our ability to move about the city of Columbus, or if a student decides that they do want to go home and they're out of state, it's imperative that they do that sooner than later, because the possibility of them being able to do that a few weeks from now could potentially change. So, the decision-making changed rapidly, and we are in the midst of our students leaving campus, and again, welcome them to stay, but are having them be thoughtful about where they might spend the rest of the semester. So I anticipate of our 450 residential students that about 40 of them will stay. And then we've made some decisions that were really difficult about the end of the year events we have, our commencement. We have a huge fashion show. We have a huge art festival. So those have been some of the other new updates we've done lately.
Thanks for sharing, Liz. So we're really going to open it up now to questions and topics from our audience. Again, please use that Q&A button to submit. I know we already have some questions coming in, so I've actually brought one of our attendees up to the microphone to share their question with our group. So Samantha, if you could introduce yourself and then ask your question.
Sure. My name is Samantha Baldridge. I am the Assistant Director for Marketing and Communications at Louisiana State University. We have not asked, I'm so sorry, my 2-year-old is also chiming in. We have started encouraging students to leave, but have not at any point asked them to leave or told them that they have to leave. And we are offering housing credits for those students who do elect to leave early, for a portion of the housing fee, since they won't be staying with us on campus. And we are seeing a lot of criticism from parents in terms of how we're calculating the the credits, how much they're getting. They're upset that we won't tell them before they leave how much their credit would be. So I was just looking for some insight, maybe how, if y'all are experiencing similar criticisms, Charlie, how you're dealing with it on your campuses.
And first of all, we always love dogs or children to be on these, so don't worry. That's wonderful.
I can go first. In our release yesterday, we did not provide a specific amount, so it was generic. We stated that our residents will be credited a certain amount on their Bursar account. And so we anticipate that we will get some feedback and some follow-up from parents and students. But we think that the formula we're using is pretty solid, and we're hoping that we can stick with that. But we did not put a specific amount, or go into detail, with our release. So far we have not gotten a lot of inquiries, or probably any inquiries, in that area up to this point.
We're also doing, sorry, Kathryn,
Go ahead.
a partial credit for housing, for the meal plan, and for our studio fees. And really the only pushback I've received so far is people really wanted that instantly. And it's running up against our housing selection for next year, which has some financial commitment involved with it. And so some families were anticipating that this refund that their student would receive if they left campus would kind of apply to next year. And there's a lot of different financial and legal implications for doing something like that. But I can't offer a student a refund if they haven't left housing, because the refund is if they leave housing. So we've kind of had to just walk some folks through that step and, help them understand like the timeline for, when and how the refund will take place, especially because all of our campus and much of Columbus are working remotely and working from home at this point. So it's changed, the nature of the way that some of our processes go.
Yeah, just Liz said something that made me think of this. I had a meeting with my leadership team this morning, and you can imagine there's just so many different scenarios that you can process and think about. And so one was brought to my attention that I didn't think about. Students that can't get back, students that cannot get back to campus during the expected time frame that we have listed. They may not be able to get back till the end of the semester. So how do you deal with that type of situation? So maybe they don't get the full charge that expected, but there should be some type of charge if we're holding on to their belongings, during the rest of the semester. So that's another scenario that you have to think about too.
And I apologize, true to form, I'm on campus and they're blowing leaves outside, as they do basically anytime I get on any call, so hopefully you can still hear me. Apparently our landscapers are still essential, so great. For us, since we are on quarters, we haven't actually billed for our third quarter yet for the year, and so that billing cycle is supposed to happen Monday of spring break. So for us, students who completely move out essentially by the end of today won't have any spring term charges. So it's an easier message to send. It's probably a harder financial hit to our department and how we manage that. And then, as Leon was just saying, students who can't get back, or once the messaging started last week, they're right outside my window too. Yeah, can't manage that when it's live, right? If they can't get back to campus, how do we work with them? How do we box up their stuff and not essentially penalize them for still having occupancy of the room in ways that we normally would?
Similarly, well, we've been so far pretty successful in just having our students and families be understanding that it's going to be a couple weeks before we can communicate any kind of proration, because of what we've just talked about. So we've got some students that had to leave belongings behind, so they didn't even officially check out. We have some that have emptied their rooms completely and left and checked out. And then of course we still have the students that are here And as a small college, everything is kind of viewed together. And so because of the block plan, we have some students that could make a decision to not take classes block 7 and 8 because we're not in the middle of a graded term. That impacts questions and expectations around tuition. So as a college, we'll be responding as best as we can in a couple of weeks. And our communications department's been outstanding. And so we've got the typical banner across our website, a very good FAQ. So actually internally, we're taking very few questions on that matter as people are kind of waiting until the original date was April 15th. We're hoping to get an answer out a little bit sooner now that we have made a decision about the entire semester.
Thanks all. Another topic that we've seen be quite salient is student staff and how institutions are handling student staff, whether they are integral to the move out process, that those are happening if we're having students move out to and learn remotely. You know, are they already gone? Are they still on campus? Is there a plan to continue compensation for them? If you could all kind of just share where you might be at when it comes to student staff.
I'm happy to start on that. The first thing that we made clear when we made the announcements was that our RA staff should consider themselves students first and make a decision as to whether they wanted to leave campus as a student. We did take some resident advisors who volunteered to stay and needed to stay. At this point, we are in a status where we have not really asked them to perform any duties because the campus is still on spring break, and we're trying to manage lots of questions around student employment, work study, who we can continue to pay, who we can't. So the RAs that we have on campus are a little bit in limbo. We did have an express checkout already in place, and that was the sole way to check out in this instance. So the RAs were not involved in having to be there and check students out. And our residential experience staff have essentially primarily self-isolated and are not out and about. And so it's pretty much our campus safety staff right now trying to watch over the 200 plus students that we have.
I can go. We housed close to 5,300 undergraduate students, and I was just told that we have about 4,800 still on campus, and we are not requiring our student leaders to work from this point on for the rest of the semester. However, we do have some that are interested in working, and we anticipate a lot of work that needs to be done between now and the end of the semester. Once the majority of our rooms in apartments and suites become vacant, and after they've sat there for a while, we'll want to go in and start doing inspections. As John mentioned, we're going to have an express checkout process where students do not have to go through any several steps to check out. They just pack up their belongings and move out. We have several desks where students can check in and check out of, but during this period, we only have 2. So we've consolidated. So we need those desks staffed. One is 24 hours. We'll also need to forward students mail for the rest of the semester. So the point I'm trying to make is that there will be work that needs to be done, and we need help. So student leaders that are coming forward and saying that, I would like to continue to work, we're going to take advantage of that.
All right, thanks for sharing, folks. We're going to have another audience member bring up our next question. So Vaughn, if you could introduce yourself to the group and then share a question. And of course, unmute yourself as well.
There we go.
Hi, Vaughn, we hear you now.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Vaughn Stange. I am at the University of Iowa as a Senior Director of Housing and Dining. I also have the pleasure of serving as a Coba Vice President for 2020. We just got some recent news. We are in day 2 in an 11-day checkout process in order to minimize social distancing for our staff. This afternoon, it appears the Illinois governor is going to follow California and do shelter in place for the residents of the state of Illinois. As you might know, the state of Illinois has been traditionally the largest exporter of college students throughout the country. So this will probably impact a number of different campuses. We're trying to figure out what are plans for you if other states follow suit. Leon, you're in Oklahoma. You probably have a lot of Texas students. That might be one of the states. What are you looking for as far as move out about extending move out if other states happen to follow suit and go shelter in place? Yeah. Or if your own state goes shelter in place?
Yeah. Vaughn, great question. I got a call yesterday from one of our local newspapers asking if we're kicking our students out of housing. We definitely have a process in place over a 12-day period trying to get our students to move out. Just like what you said, doing that over several days to adhere to the social distancing guidelines. We also, though, in our release and our notification, we had a form, an extension request form, realizing that there are going to be some students that may not have somewhere to go, may not be able to go home. There are some extenuating circumstances. So we are looking at those on an individual basis, and we're prepared to have students that will not be able to leave after April the 3rd. After April the 3rd. So we're prepared to accommodate those students. And also, we have a Greek community that is off campus. It doesn't fall within my department, and so we're working with the Greek community, and there may be some students there as they close down their chapter houses. We're prepared to accommodate them as well. So.
I think for us here, it's a matter of the flexibility and allowing people to space out their move out. I suspect Oregon might get to the point of doing a shelter in place soon as well, just given where California and Washington State are both at with the virus at this point. So flexibility is kind of the name of the game for us. We're working with people who've already left and don't have their keys, can't get back here. Okay, we'll work with you. We'll get your stuff packed up and sent to you probably sometime in April. Just stay safe wherever you are, or stay here if you want to. And so it's hard for those of us, and I speak definitely for myself, who are type A and who are planners, who like to have something good and organized and thought out. We had 0 time to prepare for move out, and we normally spend months talking about it. And so it's just kind of as we go, figuring it out and encouraging people to stay safe. I know for us, as we have eliminated the RA room inspection because we're trying to mitigate some of that point of contact as much as we can. So we've got an express checkout. I run our service desks where all the keys are. So we've got key envelopes and they can leave them there. So we're really trying to keep that 6-foot distance and really being creative and flexible as much as we can. We want people to be safe. That's most important.
Kathryn said something that just reminded me of this. I think also it's a detail, but it can, I think, avoid some major headaches down the road, is being strategic about where you are placing students that, if you're going to reassign students. So we're looking at our facilities where there's minimum shared air, because we know that some spaces, with the shared air, it can promote the carrying of viruses easier. So if you're in a position where you can reassign students and minimize and limit the amount of shared air, I think that's something that can help. too, as we deal with this situation.
For us here, we semi-anticipated our governor making that announcement today, but he did not. Because we've been in this process now, actually yesterday at 5 o'clock was our checkout deadline. So we are close to the number of students that we're going to have here. We do expect some will continue to check out, but we've got, like I said, right around that 200 number. So our biggest concern around the shelter in place is kind of that next layer of staffing, and the apprehension of more and more staff physically reporting to campus that are willing to do work that might have them out and potentially exposed. So we're also, in particular, we have Bon Appetit as our food provider. They've been awesome, but obviously their volume's gone down. They're trying to maintain a certain level of staffing. But we also have a contracted health center, and we've been notified by them today that because of the low volume of students that we have and the high demand for their healthcare providers, they're looking to go to 1 day a week, 3 hours for that 1 day. So that's one of the other things that if we do get a shelter in place, the impact on our ability to serve the students that we have physically on campus is a growing concern.
Thanks so much for sharing. So we're going to take a brief pit stop, and I'd like us to take a look at our question and answer screen if you are an attendee. We have Frank, who's posed a great question about what ideas might you have for online virtual events. And as attendees of today's session, you are able to comment on people's questions. So as we go through today, if you think of online virtual event ideas, I'd encourage you to go to Frank's post on the question and answer tab and type in some answers of what you might be doing on your campuses. That would be a really great process of group share. So next topic I have for our attendees, and I lost my place, of course. So I think if we could just elaborate a little bit more in terms of eliminating and reducing contact between students and staff. We heard a little bit about that in this previous topic we were discussing, but what other things are we doing to help protect staff members when it comes into human contact or spaces that may be at risk for them?
One thing that comes to mind as we started to brainstorm and figure out what does our checkout process look like. We decided that we would create a sign up genius process and allot a certain number of time slots per hour per building. So basically, to the point, maybe 6 students per building per hour, and you get an hour, an hour to move out, an hour and a half if you're in an apartment. So just really making sure that you're not having a system set up to where one building is just inundated with a bunch of parents and students and just have too many people in close proximity. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind. I think Kathryn mentioned it earlier. We're doing express checkouts. So we're not going to have student staff going in and inspecting rooms while rooms are occupied. I think that's very important. We're not touching keys. We have envelopes for keys, and we're asking our students to stop by these 2 central desks to get your envelope, and then they'll be dropped off in a box when you're ready to check out. So those are some key things. And as far as so those are some of the key strategies that we have in place here.
All right. With institutions that are helping to pack up some of those items and send them back to students, is that a process that's being done in-house? Is that a contract out? Or are we not even far enough along in the process to know how that's going to be completed?
No, I mentioned that. So I think we're a little far out from knowing for sure. If the volume is high, which I suspect it will be, we'll probably have to contract that out. One of the big things that we're trying to help alleviate concerns for is if people can't get back here. We have a lot of students from the state of California, as an example. They're now in shelter in place. They cannot leave even if they wanted to. We want them to know we're not going to charge them for spring, but it will probably take us some time, perhaps into April and maybe even May, to get them their belongings. So we want to alleviate their concern of, we get it, we're not going to penalize you with extra charges because you can't get back here. We need to know that you're not here. We'll work with you to get it shipped home, but I suspect we'll probably have to contract that out.
Yeah, for us here, we're probably a month away from really having to make that decision. Like many of you, probably we've had multiple agencies, things that do, people who do this professionally contact us, reach out to us. Some are directly soliciting students who may choose to hire those companies, and we would still then have to make a decision when the timing will be right to allow those folks to come to campus. So for right now, since we're kind of in a 30-day window where we're to be doing all that we can to do the social distancing, we're just saying we're leaving the belongings. We are checking rooms, particularly those rooms that we believe have been completely vacated, to verify that and remove perishable food items, things that might become a problem for us, but then we're locking the room and we'll manage the belongings as best we can. We were grateful to find several rooms where students who had to leave actually packed their belongings before they left, but their belongings still will need to be shipped or come back and pick up perhaps in early summer, or I think it's just too early to know right now.
Thank you. A practitioner question for you all to consider as we try to, share practices that maybe we're using or experiencing with the group. What is something helpful that either a supervisor has done to show you support during this time, or what's something that you've done that you feel has been really helpful that you've done for your staff to show them support during this time?
I can take that one, Spencer. So I'm relatively new to CCAD and, have sat in these meetings kind of planning our response with many campus stakeholders who I didn't really know prior to, all these things taking place. And, it was a really powerful exercise seeing that our president took the lead to initiate what the work from home schedule would look like, so that there was an identified group of people on campus every day, and that was really critical for us to maintain. She is invested in us taking care of ourselves, and many of us, myself included, have little children, and the Columbus schools have been closed for a week, will be closed for 2 more weeks, and potentially longer, if we're being realistic. So just that role modeling of, how and what we work like in this new environment has been really helpful. And then just seeing, other people be really, deliberate and intentional about our decision making, but also letting the experts be the experts, of all of these different areas. I couldn't tell you at all how you take, classroom learning completely remote and online, and how you support the technology of that, right? So I let the experts manage that, and I manage the housing piece. And it's a great collaboration in a really hard environment.
My supervisor brought in donuts this morning. So sometimes it's the little things. We're really, we are working on making sure we're working remotely as much as possible. I think as students are moving out, more of us are here than we would probably want to have here. I've got 3 direct report staff who were very much in charge of the frontline operations. And so working with them on a schedule to work remotely, and it's also role modeling that where I can. I want to be here and be supportive, and being supportive and being present look differently now. And so I'm just trying to keep that in mind, checking in frequently with my staff to make sure that they've got what they need, and thanking them and acknowledging that there's a lot of unknowns right now and a lot of questions that we don't have answers to, but that they're doing a great job and that I appreciate the work that they're doing. But donuts always help.
But where were the donuts from?
A local business.
That's all you're going to give us. Okay. No plugs.
I have a couple of things. Well, my boss went by his office yesterday or the day before, and there's a big paper bag of just great chocolate in there, and then also a handwritten note from him thanking me for all the work that we're doing. So really appreciated that. We have a committee that's very intentional with it's called CARE, Celebrating and Recognizing Employees. And so one of the co-chairs of that committee has been intentional with sending something out on a daily basis just to our entire staff via email to make them smile, which has been helpful. As I mentioned earlier, the notification that went out to our residents yesterday, we had really less than 24 hours to get this very detailed, well thought out document together so my superiors could have a chance to review that. And so there were 3 critical employees or staff members that worked on that. And so I made sure that they were recognized yesterday with a departmental email. So that was very, very appreciative. I was very appreciative of that. Something that happened in our central office yesterday was really neat. I did not coordinate that, but our chief financial officer did. And that was just a hot dog lunch. He grilled some hot dogs. And so our central office employees just busy answering the phone, didn't have a chance to get away for lunch. And so it was really neat to just get away from your desk and have some grilled hot dogs, potato salad, and potato chips. So I think people enjoyed that.
Y'all are making me hungry, just for the record.
And I'm pretty sure during pandemics like this, calories don't count.
They don't. I saw that on social media via you today. That's correct. I don't know if that's correct. I think moving forward and to not as fun topics, but as we think about the fiscal pieces of what housing looks like and what our spaces look like as we move to summer, I think there's a growing concern over summer conferences. What are you seeing on your campuses in terms of summer conferences? Have changes already been started to be made? Are we seeing conferences that are being canceled that would be typically come into campus? What does that impact look like so far? And then if there's a plan for the future, what does that potential future plan look like?
Well, Spencer, that question's a little early, but I will tell you that we have Special Olympics here, Special Olympics for the state of Oklahoma here every year. Been here for many, many years, and it happens, seems like they come here the day or 2 days right after our undergraduate students leave for the summer. And we have over 1,000 athletes that come to our campus. It's a huge, huge event. And a few days ago, we did get the confirmation that it's not going to happen this summer. And so we haven't followed up with our other customers, our other conference groups, but we do anticipate that this summer is going to look a lot different. Yeah.
I would say very similar at Colorado College. One of the things that will impact that is as we go into the virtual delivery, any kind of concerns about how technology will hold up, both less so on campus, but more so where students are trying to access it. We are more liberal in our pass-fail approach in academics, but if we should see a big hiccup in our ability to deliver the courses and have to extend the semester, Whether or not that happens will impact our conferences. We're also paying close attention to our local municipality restrictions. Currently, they've informed us that large events into the month of May are expected to be limited, and obviously for some of our larger groups, if that continues to extend, then we would expect they may be canceling. So it's definitely something we've been thinking about, trying to plan for, but as Leon said, it is a little uncertain right now just how much it's going to impact us.
And I can speak on behalf of someone who oversees the housing internship program too. I think I'm starting to see a lot of concern come in with those Kauai housing intern positions that were affiliated with conference services spots. That there's concern there. I don't. Again, it's early. I agree, it's early, but I think we're already thinking down the road as what are the next pieces that we need to think about in those ripple effects. I think, to help with the question we've been asking people to comment on in our Q&A in terms of those online virtual events, I know in speaking with institutions throughout the week and having a variety of these virtual roundtables, there's a lot of thought behind how to continue to engage the students who are learning remotely but maybe no longer on our campuses. Have you all thought about what that looks like on residence life side in terms of connecting those students, continuing to engage them? Maybe it's learning community engagement, maybe it's just overall programming and community building virtually, what that might look like.
I can't speak to the res life side on my campus, but I will answer it from the lens of the incoming cohort for next fall. We've started talking about what can we do to work with that group. We've had all of our campus visit events, both on campus and where we travel, have all been canceled for the next month. So these are the students who are at home, kind of worried about their high school graduation process and how that looks. And so they're eager for any information. And so I know our VP of enrollment emailed all of them the other day with some information and some resources. We pushed out our commit date to June 1 for the institution as opposed to May 1. And so we've looked at some of our housing policies on that. And we're talking about doing more virtual tours and things like that to kind of get them engaged with campus and get them excited and let them know that we care about them and we want them to come.
Yes, with us, we have a unique community that's a very strong community. It's called the Family and Graduate Student Housing Community. So it consists of families and graduate students, and the majority of those residents are international. And so coincidentally, I think it was on Monday, one of the staff members came forward, our assistant director came forward, and had a proposal on how to do some community building online. And so we're really excited to see how that goes. There are a ton of kids that live in that community. So we're trying to create some games, some videos online that will help these students stay connected. Some cooking competitions. Cooking is very, very popular. So now asking residents to put their recipes online, take some videos or pictures of some of their dishes. So those are some of the things we're doing. Also, of course, we've gone online with all of our classes, and at first I didn't think about it impacting me, but I'm teaching one of our student leadership classes. This is a class for students that are interested in being an RA or community mentor in our department. And so our last few weeks will definitely have to be online. We use Canvas. And so we will, these last 3 classes, our PowerPoints will be online with detailed information, and then we'll ask them to do a reflection exercise, either a journal entry or do a Flipgrid and entry. So that's where we are with some of the online learning.
Our campus activities staff and residential staff, and in fact all of the Division of Student Life, are trying to work really hard together. one of the challenges, of course, is trying to do any kind of synchronous event virtually because of all the different time zones, trying to include international students. And so there has been a lot of emphasis on trying to get creative video content. We posted a YouTube video recently from our director of the Wellness Resource Center, just helping promote anxiety management and some different kinds of things. So we're trying to come up with some different ideas, but it's, pretty much it's going to need to be asynchronous because of just where everybody is and how their courses are going to be delivered asynchronously. So when they're choosing to try to do their coursework, but the staff is really trying to work across very collaboratively. So like many of us, we do suffer from overprogramming. So we're trying not to virtually overprogram as well, because that fear of missing out. So we're really trying to make sure that whatever we put out there is something that a good number can access and not feel like they're missing out on the few things that we're able to pull together for the community.
Thanks, all. And I definitely recognize we're in our last 8 minutes of today's virtual roundtable. Last time I just wanted to bring up if we could just consider what processes may have been interrupted that are pretty key components to your campuses. So I'm thinking about student staff selection, housing selection. If that's been interrupted in your campus, can you just share, and then maybe what the preliminary plans are to work through that if we're working through that remotely or from afar?
Well, Spencer, something else that I think is very critical for us to acknowledge is the Census 2020 process. And so we were all ready to go, and we had gotten to the point where we accepted the directive of doing the drop-off pickup format. We had been in constant communication with our registrar and felt like that we were going to violate some FERPA guidelines by doing the e-response. So after this major disruption, we went back to our census rep and representative, and so now they're more open to us using the e-response. And our registrar gave some specifications or criteria that we need to follow, and so the census rep is definitely being more flexible. So we are excited about that. Now we get to use the e-response, which is much more efficient than the drop-off pickup format. So just want to share that.
Yeah, the census has been so much a part of my life the last couple of months, and we're supposed to do the drop or pick up as well, and now that's kind of next on my list to work through. If on April 1 we don't have nearly the same number of residents as we were expecting to have, then our data won't be good. So what does that mean moving forward? Yeah. And then for me, I know that our RA process is in limbo right now. I'm not a part of that, so I won't speak to it, but the housing selection process, our current students picking their rooms, is supposed to happen in April. We're going to move forward with that. We're just going to extend deadlines and work more with students who don't pick rooms to find out, and it's an online process, to find out what their plans are and just be, again, a little bit more flexible than we probably would have previously.
Kathryn, I would just recommend that follow with your census rep. They have been very responsive, and I bet that they'll be a little bit more flexible and supportive with that, with that process. As far as RAs and community mentors, we call them community mentors on our campus. As I mentioned, we have an 8-week course that gives us an opportunity to evaluate them over several weeks versus just a 30-minute interview and a group activity. But we still do interviews, and so now those interviews will be virtual, and we're going to continue with those over the next several weeks.
Yeah, our housing selection process was already an online process, so that is less impacted, and our residential experience staff has been utilizing virtual interviewing in the professional realm for a while. So they're just expecting to continue that all the way through. It is going to be a challenge on the professional side. I think across all of our institutions, right now our institution is not allowing visitors. So while we have not suspended selection processes, we're not allowed to bring candidates to campus. And of course, it would be a very distorted view of what the campus would be like. So that is a concern. We do anticipate using virtual interviews to complete our RA process. The returning process was already underway. But those are folks that are familiar with the campus, familiar with the job. It's really the professional realm that I think is going to be an adjustment for all of us as we think about how candidates are going to make their decisions without being actually able to physically come visit most of our campuses.
Absolutely. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention something along the lines of that TP is working on having a virtual type of placement next week. So those of you who have been involved in TP, you should have seen messages both for candidates and employers this week as they've worked to move that process to be virtual next week. So hopefully that is still an aid to institutions that are continuing to be able to search for candidates and recruit and interview. As we wrap up today, first of all, I definitely want to thank Kathryn, Liz, John, and Leon for their time, participation, insights, and all that they bring to the field. And then also thank our attendees for coming together today, sharing ideas, questions, comments. I do know we've got one Q&A item that came in from Ian Miller from Central Washington in terms of resources for virtual community building. I asked Ian to post that in the ACUI online community. As I said earlier, we've been working to bring our COVID-19 resources that are in the online community to our COVID-19 resource page as well. So that should be something that you see posted soon. You can see the address on the screen now. That is our web address for our ACUI resource page when it comes to COVID-19. Last Friday, we had a straw poll result that was posted there as we did a straw poll for senior housing officers. We've been in the midst of doing a second straw poll, and those results we're hoping to post on Monday. So look for more information from ACUI on Monday during the day. I'm not going to put that much pressure on us to have it be in the morning, but Monday during the day you should see those results. We will be doing 3 more virtual roundtables next week. On Tuesday, we will be having one for mid-level professionals. We will have our senior housing officer session on Thursday, and we'll be having another open forum Friday, next Friday. Those are all at 3 p.m. Eastern, which I believe is like noon on the West Coast, right, Kathryn? Thanks, great. And that's also 11 p.m. in the Middle East. I found that out this week too. So again, a reminder of our online resources that you can check out. For our panelists, if you have any final words, final thoughts, final piece of encouragement for our attendees, the floor is yours.
One thing that comes to mind, I think we all know that things are changing and developing very quickly. I made a decision a couple of days ago to have a virtual meeting with my leadership team every morning. And just to touch base, they may vary in time or the amount of time we meet, but just have that on the schedule so we can touch base. I think that can be very helpful.
I'd say my advice is make sure you're taking care of yourself. I've definitely had a few times where just being real, I've had some panic attacks about some of the stuff going on, and it's hard not to think about what this means for the future of all sorts of things. And we get to feel how we're feeling in the midst of taking care of our staff and our students. And so just make sure you're building in time, that your support network, that you're checking in with them, and you're taking care of yourself. And wash your hands.
When you can't control anything else, control your attitude, stay positive.
Yeah, I would say that, it's just so hard to forget what a wild situation we're in, that no one has ever really experienced anything like this on our campuses currently. And, you know, to stay student-centered, to be thoughtful, to use science and evidence to drive your decisions. And I'm hopeful that that'll keep us on track and moving forward.
And I continue to say, keep a daily journal. Write down 1 or 2 things that happened that day in your journal. It can be bullet points. I think it'll be really remarkable to look back on when we get to look at this in hindsight. So thank you all for taking the time to come together and build community among one another virtually. Remember, this field of work is really student-driven, so let's not forget that in these really hard times on ourselves as professionals, but also really trying times for our students. Try to still stay student-centered in the work we do. We'll be back online next week, so hope to see many of you in our virtual roundtables then. Signing off this Friday open forum. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.